Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Elevenses. My name is Aisling McMahon. I'm a customer lifetime value specialist here in the Dublin office, and I'm going to talk to you today about how we approach customer lifetime value in Google and a couple of the strategies we have launched recently in regards to some of the products we have developed. So today what we're going to do is we're really going to explore what lifetime value is and showcase how and what can be done, and understand how to integrate in your business these lifetime strategies and really how Google can help you take that step. So really, I wanted to take a step back and really kind of go back to this quote and talk about, like, half the money I spend on advertising is useless. The trouble is I don't know which half that is. And this is a really famous quote from John Wanamaker, who's been praised with really bringing modern day marketing to the next step. And when we're talking to advertisers and the clients I work with, it's really hard to understand where that investment is driving value and who are our most valuable customers. And that really is the forefront of customer centricity and measuring lifetime value. So what we're really going to do today is take a step back and understand where we should be investing our budget and who is driving the most value to our businesses. Because most advertisers today are marketing to their average customer, because we have been focusing on trying to hit everyone. But really, the reality of it is that not all customers are equal. And we need to identify who our highest value customers are to drive long-term value to our businesses. And when we look at it, Forbes did a survey there last year, and only 13% of organizations say they're making the most of their available data, which is a really low amount. And that's what we're going to focus on today, to really understand where we can drive value through our customer data. Because 62% of our consumers expect brands to deliver a consistent experience, while surprisingly only 42% of them believe that they do. And when we dig into this further, we talk the talk, but do we actually walk the walk? When asked to a bunch of CMOs last year, only 16% of CMOs said that they were accurately measuring lifetime value, as opposed to 27% of them considering it really important metric to measure. So what we're going to do is talk through today how we can actually try increase that number north of 16% to how we can actually accurately measure lifetime value for our businesses. So I guess the question is, how do we actually identify, truly understand, and most importantly, reach our most valuable customers based on all the information we have as a business? How do we use our own data to inform our strategy to find our highest value customers? Because most media optimization is based on specific data media teams, and they traditionally have access to what we would all know as segments, audiences, demographics. But really, imagine what we could do if we could take in even more information and optimize our media campaigns with all the data we have access to. And today we're really going to focus on that kind of CRM data and how we can focus on our customer data. So let's take a look at an example of why we should be looking at lifetime value at a customer level. So let's look at Joe and Mary here. Two customers that they make the same purchase and are treated the same. Both have the same value to make the same purchase on the same day. But really, are they actually equal when we look at them as a future customer? And in reality, we want to feed the value of every customer to our marketing tools for better, faster optimization. So when we look at Joe and Mary here, Joe's future predicted value is actually based off $150, whereas Mary looks like she's turned and hasn't come back to the business and only spent that original $25. So really what we're talking about is trying to understand the differences between each customer and use a predictive model to understand who will be our valuable customers at a certain point in the future, not just today. And I really want to be very specific here. The approach is not the same for every client. We really need to understand each individual customer's marketing objectives and choose the data sources that we want to take the data from and determine where to take action and how. How do we incorporate that into your specific strategy to meet your OKRs and your KPIs within your business? Because ultimately, not all customers are equal. I mentioned it earlier on in the presentation. We have traditionally been targeting our average customer to try cover off all bases. But really, we're at a point now that we really need to take a step back and say, yes, not all customers are equal. We should not be treating every customer the same. We shouldn't be showing the same ad to everyone. We shouldn't be bidding the same to everyone. So really, that is the underlining method here, that we are acknowledging that every customer is not equal. And this is really underlined by the Pareto principle, the 80-20% rule. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the principle, it's in general, we see that 80% of our revenue is driven by the top 20% of our customers. So when we look at treating every customer equally, or targeting to our average customer as we would have done in the past, this really doesn't make great business sense. What we really want to do is focus on that top 20% who's driving the higher amount of our revenue, and deprioritize the ones who are not. Because customer centricity reveals how to increase the profits from our best customers, and most importantly, find more like them, and avoid over-investing in the rest, which is a very common practice. And when we look at reallocating our marketing spend according to customer value prediction, and we take a look at the slides there on the left before lifetime value, we were over investing on the customers who were not actually giving us the returns, and we weren't seeing the revenue coming through. And we were actually missing out on opportunity for our highest valued customers, who were actually driving that 80% of our revenue. But when we shift to a customer-centric approach and really analyze and segment our customers based on value, we can actually reallocate our marketing spend to proportionate to a more accurate future value. So what we can see on the right there is a more accurate representation of how we should be allocating our marketing spend and our time that we invest in these customers. So I suppose the question is, why now? Well, why now is we have that reach available to us. We're at a point where we have so many products with over 1 billion users that we can really reach those customers. We have the scale, and we're taking an AI approach first, an AI first approach even. So as customer data evolves, we need to rely less on manual efforts and more on simple, accurate algorithms to help us. And that is really kind of the underpin of this strategy. It's machine learning, finding the highest value customers and predicting it out. So what it will do is it will help us identify the best customers based on their value, really understand what makes the best customers unique. And the goal is to find more of these best customers, and to grow our revenue through that audience. And when we look at kind of how we would approach that at an audience side, what we can do is lifetime value is very much a mid to lower funnel. If we're looking for performance, it will help us selectively choose whom to advertise. Those users who fit your customer segment are more likely to convert multiple times and become loyal customers. So if we're looking at trying to build loyalty, we can put them into the mid-lower funnel for our highest value customers to target them with loyalty programs and special deals. But if we're looking at it as an upper funnel approach, we can use our customer segments to find new audiences who are similar to that of our highest value customers and create awareness and build up consideration. So it's really kind of deciding on what part of the funnel we want to target people. But let's take a step back and really understand what exactly is customer lifetime value. And when we look to define that, customer lifetime value is basically analysis of a customer over a lifetime and by their value. It's a long-term prediction of the future value of our customer interactions. It's really important here to note that this is not a historical average. It's long-term orientated predictions. It's value at an individual level. And this is probably one of the most common questions I get when talking about customer lifetime value. This is at a customer level. It's not at a transaction level. We're understanding the value of each individual customer. And this can be impactful across the entire value chain. And while this is certainly not a new concept by any means, it's one that we have. It is actually one that we haven't been able to bring to the advertisers until now. And why is this really critical to do this now? It's more valuable when we have the ability to bid accurately based on customer profitability. So using this metric to score customers can help us determine who exactly are our most valuable customers in terms of long-term quality. And ultimately, this can drive critical strategic decisions, like who we should target and who we should exclude from targeting. What offers and services do I want to offer to our highest value customers versus someone who is in our lowest segment? And how do I drive customer loyalty? How do I actually expand and cross-sell and grow the value driven by my highest value customers? So what should we consider when we're looking at a typical purchasing journey of all our different customers? We can see that here there's an example of analyzing each customer, acknowledging all their transactions over time and the different frequency between them and the repetitiveness. And at one point in time, we can make assumptions about each of those customers. But really, how do we actually measure out and predict the future lifetime value of each of these individual customers? Because customers, and this is ultimately the key point here, customers who were valuable in the past may not always be valuable in the future. So our highest value customers may not be our highest value customers in a year's time. So what we're going to do is we're going to segment our customers from highest value to lowest value based off the likelihood of the most revenue being driven by that customer base. And what we've done here at Google is we have developed a tool called Deep CRM to help us segment those customer bases and really find who our highest value customers are. And part of our approach to this was by developing a 5 steps strategy to shift to customer centricity and really integrate into your marketing strategy. And why we have developed these 5 steps is because this is a change that needs to be done at a company-wide level. So this is our advice on how to approach integrating a lifetime value strategy to your business. So what we'll do is we'll take a quick look through each step and why we feel like each step should be followed through. So if we look at sponsoring, the first step, which is sponsor, really the key here is that you need to have a sponsor at an exec level or a C level at your business or at your agency who to really integrate this in and break down the silos within businesses, because we're talking about a cross-team collaboration here. Whereas data comes from the CRM team, we might be changing how we measure results and revenue, so the finance team needs to be brought in. So really we need to have the right sponsor who can align all our key stakeholders and really understand what is customer lifetime value and understand the concept that it is a long-term focus on all of our customers' interactions with the company. And they really need to care. They need to understand why they should care, why you should be shifting to a customer-centric approach and invest in customers who are driving that value, and more importantly, divest in those who aren't driving value for our business. And finally, they should really understand what I should consider or what we should consider when undertaking this kind of strategic approach, in terms of it's not a historical average, it's a future predictive model, and really be able to have that power to make that change at an organizational level. So this is kind of like the most simple way to explain what we can expect from this, and to have the right sponsor involved would really understand that customer lifetime value helps us distinguish our best customers. So what we can expect to see from the tool and the analysis is a breakdown of our customer base, of driving who is driving our value to our business. Sometimes these results can be really surprising, especially to people who are a bit removed from the day-to-day of the advertising campaigns. This is the Pareto principle here. 80% of our revenue is being driven by our top 20% of our customers. And then if we look at organizing the data for customer analysis, probably to this point, you're wondering, okay, this all sounds great, but how do I actually segment the customer base? And what data do I need to do it? So what data do we need to do this is customer interaction data. Really important to have clean data over that time. Remove any discrepancies or outliers that may have occurred. We suggest about at least 2 years of data, and kind of pivoting a little bit, but who is actually perfect for this are e-commerce customers, people with a lot of online transactions, but that doesn't necessarily restrict it to only e-commerce based customers. And make sure that the data is vetted and trusted by all stakeholders involved. That's really important. So when we look at what kind of data do we actually need for this analysis, it's really quite simple. We need a customer ID, dates of the transactions, and the transaction value. And we say 3 years plus of data, but if you're an e-commerce based business and you're seeing a huge amount of sales coming through online, 2+ years should be enough. And then really, how do we actually do the segmentation? So marketers can assess customer value using descriptive or prediction. And it's important to note the differences between the two and how our tool actually distinguishes prediction versus description. So the total value of customers will bring to your business over the entire relationship. That's what we're talking about when we talk about future predicted value. Because historical value is looking backwards, whereas the predictive model is going to predict with a high accuracy and a low margin error of who our customers will likely be or who of our customers will be likely driving our highest value who of our customers will be driving the highest value to our business in the future. And really the question is here, why model? Why use a prediction model? Because past performance is not always indicative of future results. So if we take customer A and B and look at them at, say, present day is week 39, it's really safe to say at today at week 39 that customer B looks like they're more likely to purchase in the future. They've made more frequent purchases than customer A. But actually, the principle here that we're really looking at is going to predict it out to 1 year in the future. And at this point, when we look at customer A and customer B, neither of them have made a purchase again since week 39. So the underlying principle here is that the assumption is actually that it's far more likely that customer B has churned because they were making a lot of repeat transactions in a really short amount of time, whereas customer A was much more predictable. They were repeating purchases on a more consistent basis. They had generally the same amount of time between purchases. And the principle here is that it's more likely that customer A is going to make a purchase in the future than customer B. So when we're predicting value across the customer journey, we're going to look at who our highest value customers are. Who are the customers who have repeated at a certain frequency, who was purchasing higher value products versus who was a low value customer who may have purchased several times in a quick burst, but hasn't purchased again in quite a while. And when we look at actually segmenting our customer base to high value to low value customers, we're focusing on our highest value customers. But there's also a piece of work that could be done around the low value to try grow them, try understand why they churned, and perhaps offer them incentives to come back to the business through deals or discounts. And once we've segmented our customer base, really the next step is how do we activate this? How do we incorporate this into our strategy? How do you work with your team at Google to really activate all this information we have and put it into play? So really there's 3 pillars of an effective lifetime value strategy. One where we can acquire, retain and grow, and experiment. So when we look through acquiring, it's finding more customers like the high value customers. Retain and grow, it's how to generate more value from the same user base. How do I grow how do I grow the revenue per each customer? How do I cross-sell them? How do I upsell to a new product group? That kind of a strategy. And then really experiment is the third pillar. How much additional value is driven by the lifetime value strategy? What incremental revenue can I grow per customer? So when we look at acquire, which is the first pillar, it really makes sense to kind of explore at a customer level. So we're probably all familiar with the different similar audience and lookalike audiences that we have available to us across YouTube and Gmail. But what I would actually encourage everyone to do is, once we segment our customer base, is to upload those lists into ads through Customer Match. And I'm not sure if many of you would be familiar with the Audience Insight Report, but use the Audience Insight Report to really, really understand what makes up those customer bases. Because segment 1 of our highest value customers might look very different to segment 3. So I'd really encourage everyone to understand what actually makes up that group of people. And then from that, we can set higher or lower target CPAs or target ROAS based on these dimensions and these customer base. But also a nice strategy to make here is, if we are looking at the customer base segments on the Audience Insight Report, what we can do is help us inform our content going forward. So if we know what the likes and dislikes are of our highest value customer, and we know we're going to launch a YouTube campaign later in the year, we can really take some of these insights from our Audience Insight Report to inform what kind of content that audience would like to see. So going back to how we actually kind of activate this in the most straightforward format is through Customer Match. And we use these identified lifetime value segments to target the customers to reach the customer segments across devices when they want to hear from us. And really kind of going back to one of the first slides, personalize that message, because people expect brands to personalize that message to them. And then when we really look at like the second pillar of how do we retain, we now know who our best value customers are. We can re-engage them to drive greater revenue and keep them for longer. So we can identify who the customers that have churned and who the customers that are likely to churn. And by using products like Customer Match for search or shopping or Gmail or YouTube, we can improve the likelihood to stay with the business by targeting existing customers who are likely to churn but haven't yet. And more importantly, again, we can exclude customers that have already churned to avoid wasted spend. And then when we look at the part 2 of pillar 2, it's growing. As I said, we now know who our best customers are. So we can re-engage them to drive greater revenue and keep them with the business longer. And we can trigger additional purchases or upgrades for top customers by providing loyal customer incentives, for example, special offers, early access to a new product line, customized wording such as a loyal customer. These are all really important aspects to customer centricity and to personalization of our ads. Because ultimately, treat your best customers as they are your best customers and be there for them when they need you. Be at the very top of the page when they are searching. If they are in your top 20% of your customer base and they're driving such a significant impact on your revenue, we should be treating them differently. And we should be tailoring that message for a specific audience by using if functions and default values. And really lastly, the last step of the 5-step approach to lifetime value is experimenting. So what we want to do is experiment and try new things. So what we could do is incorporate these lists into a YouTube campaign or a Gmail. And some of the really exciting things that we're doing on YouTube is similar audiences through YouTube, or we could use the Audience Insight Report to build out custom affinity lists and custom intent lists to target them on YouTube. So the key takeaways today are that digital marketing is more valuable when you have the ability to bid accurately based on a customer profitability. And segmentation by customer value, we now have ways to measure customers differently and create value segments and target customers differently and based off that value. And there's the three pillars of an effective lifetime value strategy: acquire, attain and grow, and experiment. So that's it today. What I would say is if you have any questions on this, please do feel free to reach out to your Google account manager and we can talk to you about next steps. But thanks for tuning in and I hope you enjoyed.